one more thing that I want to talk about concerning advertising. One last thing. And it's this phenomenon called ad creep. It's the phenomenon where advertisements are appearing in places where they really have no business. They're trying to get at you through directions and ways that we never really saw coming just 20, 30 years ago. And that may not seem like, recent, but it's exceedingly recent. And the reason I make that point is this is all happening at once to a degree that we don't really know what the long-term effects are. We won't know until they are here. So we just have to cope with what we're coping with. I think that in lots of ways we see ad creep as being just fine. Places like sports stadiums being named after companies, something that just wasn't a thing back in the 90s. Things like product placement in movies and television, which can get so gross and obvious, and it can change choices that the filmmakers might want to make. And I'm not going to sit here and act like every filmmaker is an artist. Plenty of films are nothing more than commercial products, but some films could be artistic and have a certain voice behind them, and they get ruined by advertising. If not ruined, altered. And just imagine if our most famous artists and writers were product placing in their works for the last few hundred years, how different that would be. Like, okay, there's propaganda. There's religious propaganda, sure. But I'm talking about companies who are looking out for the bottom dollar and nothing else. This is different. I think that one of the most damaging places that we see it, of course, this is, what I think, is in schools. Corporations have a role in our children's education in a way that we never should have let it happen. They have a captive audience, and they can advertise without any of that parental supervision that we pretend like kids have when they're using a computer or watching television or whatever. Nothing like that. Okay, so for example, there will be different questions on standardized tests, literally bought and paid for. A famous example is this one about Oreos. This ridiculous math question that you see circulating every so often about Oreo cookies starts out saying, Oreo is America's favorite cookies. And it goes on to talk about what is the diameter of the Oreo cookie, since we know what the circumference of the Oreo cookie is. And from that, divided by pi, etc., etc. And here's the thing, the question mentions Oreo cookie like 5 times. It's like one sentence and says Oreo cookie with a little registered trademark like 5 times. But it gets even more ridiculous than that. In Texas, the curriculum that they use to discuss the environment is written and published by the Exxon Corporation. You have the fuel companies writing our academic curricula about energy consumption. And of course, they really, really focus on just how debatable this whole global warming thing is, which is absurd. And here's the thing. They don't need to win the "are people causing global warming" debate. They don't need to win it. They just need it to happen. And this is the case with most conservatism or most political things that just blatantly go against science. They do not need to win that conversation. They just need the conversation to happen. We saw this with cigarettes back in the 60s and 70s, that they did psychological research funded by the cigarette corporations that proved that if people have doubt they won't change their mind. If people have doubt, that's enough. Even if they have not proven their point, just inserting doubt is enough. There were like literal papers circling around between the different tobacco companies about this. Incidentally, tobacco companies also did this other fantastic research back there about 5 cigarettes that were dominating the market, and they found that people were not changing their minds about what cigarette they smoke. So they wanted to know, what is it about cigarettes that are so appealing? What brand? Why is this your brand? And they did a taste test with hundreds of participants. Hundreds of participants were supposed to pick out the brand that they smoked from 5 different cigarettes. And they found that they couldn't do it. They found that all of the products were identical. They were the same thing. So that's when cigarette companies decided that they needed to start really selling on image. Which one of these cigarettes says you? Are you the tough cowboy? Are you the cosmopolitan gentleman? Are you the nightlife guy? Are you the woman? One woman that they have as an option. And they had a cigarette just for each one. Just targeted at each one. Anyway, okay, I digress. I'm sorry. So obviously cigarette companies are not writing a lot of the curricula for schools, but they do introduce a lot of curricula about why you shouldn't smoke. For a long time, cigarette companies, they haven't been allowed to have advertising on television. So for a long time, they ran these PSAs, which would give them tax breaks. The public service announcements about how smoking causes lung cancer and how you shouldn't smoke. And it would be paid for by Philip Morris or whatever. And they'd say, for more information about why you shouldn't smoke, go to philipmorris.com. And you'd go there and you'd just be stuck in like the biggest, thickest propaganda page you've ever seen in your life that talked about the long tradition of tobacco in America and how tobacco built in America and how, different ways that you can also affect your health negatively besides smoking. Just taking that ball and running with it. Okay. So you have energy companies selling energy curriculum. We have different test questions getting paid out to students. You have posters advertising different products in schoolway halls. You have a radio network that's run by advertisers on all of the school buses in those districts where school buses still exist. And the worst thing of all, you have Channel 1. Maybe you guys have experienced Channel 1. It was after my time. And I'm not sure the exact saturation of Channel 1 these days. But for a while, it was just about everywhere. All schools would be watching Channel 1. And what it is a, current events show that is hosted by kids and put on by kids like you. And you had to watch it every single morning in your homeroom class. However long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Channel 1. And advertisements were in there. Advertisements about things that they knew, teens would want to pressure their parents on, like getting contacts and different pimple medication. Stuff that makes it seem like there's an answer to all of these anxieties we have about how we are perceived by our peers, which becomes really important when you're a teen. That your peers' perception of you becomes the most important lens between the ages of, say, 13 and 19, something like that. It starts to fade out after that. There's a great Mark Twain quote, and I'll paraphrase it here because I don't have it in front of me. It's something to the effect of, when I was 15, my dad was such a fool. When I was 20, I was surprised at how much he had learned. There's this innate distrust of parents that sweeps through the teen years. And this is necessary for, biology or whatever. I can let you make conclusions about that. But culturally, it doesn't have to be necessary. And culturally, advertising companies love it. They love it. They love to put that wedge there because they've done research that shows that somewhere in the neighborhood of half of a parent's disposable income is spent according to their children's nag factor. Yeah. Can you imagine having disposable income? That's fun. fun to imagine. And so they literally tell you how to nag for your parents to get you what you want. And what better way to do that than on a TV show that you have to watch, that your parents aren't around, so you can develop and learn strategies that they're unequipped for. But not only that, not only was it stuff like, teen concerned stuff, it was also no smoking ads, and it was also Army, Join the Army. We want to really press on those 15 and 16-year-olds how cool this uniform will be when it's on you. Don't worry about the whole, flying to other countries and killing strangers. Don't worry about it. Cool uniform. Honor. Fetish, man. Anyway, okay. So, Channel 1 is so remarkably corrupt. They literally advertise to advertisers about their captive audience, about their contracts with the schools, insist that every classroom keep it on every day, that every student watch it. And you're like, why do they have contracts with the schools? Professor Soul, well, let me tell you. It's because they step in and offer the school something, okay? They come into the school district and they say, how would you guys like a $50,000 computer lab? And the administrators and whatnot are like, oh my God, that would be so awesome. We were thinking about, introducing a proposal to raise property taxes by 0.01% to raise that $50,000. But we know that any tax raise isn't going to be very popular, and that, no one's going to endorse this. So yeah, we'll take your $50,000 for a computer lab. That sounds great. We need new computers. Beautiful. Thank you very much. And Channel 1 goes, okay, so all you have to do is just force your kids to watch this, 10 or 15 minutes every day. And they do it. And this seems like a good deal because they don't have to approach the community about raising taxes, since public schools are paid for by the surrounding area's property taxes, which can clue you in to why poorer areas have poorer schools, and clue you in to how pervasive racism is. And here's the thing, okay? This research is like 20 years old, 17 or 20 years old. So forgive me. If I were less lazy of a person, I would perform new research now. But these numbers will be shocking enough, and I can guarantee you that it's a lot worse now. Back when I did this research, I was teaching in Austin, Texas, and I was looking at Austin's school district. And what I found was that it cost them about $2 million a day to hold school. $2 million a day for the entire district, like to keep the doors open, to keep the schools operating, paying people, paying maintenance, et cetera, about $2 million a day. That makes sense, okay? This is not an investment. School is not an investment. It's a service, like the post service. These things are not supposed to be money-making. They're supposed to be for the community and to make the community better. So $2 million a day, we will take that. Okay. That pays the teachers a little bit. It pays the administrators plenty for their yacht. And everybody's happy because the teachers have passion. So when you take all of the time that Channel 1 takes up in the school day, you find that if you put it back to back, it would be 5 school days. You would be spending $10 million that year for the time for the students to watch Channel 1. And 2 of those 3 days, 2/5, is just advertising. So $4 million of that $10 million is paid by the community so that children can watch commercials for pimple medicine and contact lenses and the Army. $4 million. And believe me, the other $6 million on those 3 days worth of current event content, garbage, man. like garbage. Anybody could put it together faster and better. These weren't like the students chosen because they were the best of the best or anything like that. They probably didn't have a hand in making it at all, but whatever. They can call me and correct me or whatever. We are so hesitant to approach the public with how miserable the situation is with our schools that we would rather just circumnavigate it and trade $10 million for a $50,000 computer lab. That's boy math right there. That is boy math. So, do we really want corporations being in charge of what our students learn? Because they have a big say in it. Between writing the material, between sponsoring different textbooks, they have a big say in it. And nobody reasonable is approving these things. I will not grant reason to a school board that would approve such a thing. When Common Core came out several years ago, and we had to go, as college professors, go to this little educational session about Common Core so we understood the toolkit our students were coming in with. And they talked about how Common Core has students focusing on reading nonfiction because they're going to be reading nonfiction for most of their lives. Only because school turns them off from fiction. Okay. Fiction, which you can learn way more about the human psyche and the human experience than you can from nonfiction, believe it or not. There's science behind it. We'll talk later. Because essentially they want to prepare the children for the workforce. Imagine a kindergartner. They would like to start preparing them now for the workforce. So they read mostly nonfiction. They learn math this way, et cetera, and everybody learns the same. And every single day across the country, students are ostensibly learning the same curriculum. And the guy was talking about this like it was just a great idea. And I'm sitting here thinking about genetic diversity and the diversity of problem solving and intelligence and how all of this is going to nosedive. And so I raise my hand and I say, "Excuse me." And I'm so humble. "Excuse me, sir. May I speak?" And I said, "Doesn't it seem to you that the whole purpose in having a unified curriculum from coast to coast, that the whole push behind this isn't about learning better, since it will actually provide a bigger limit on what is learned, but that it's about making it where textbook companies can provide the cheapest investment and biggest return, so that they can write stuff that is just for Common Core?" I mean, this really sounds like, and I don't mean to be, but it sounds like a conspiracy by insert name of publisher to sell their textbooks from coast to coast. And the guy goes, "No, no, no. My good sir, my good professor, that could not be further from the truth. This was a way of learning that was invented by an educational genius. His name was Ray such and such, and he was such a brilliant person." And so I Googled the name, and I said, "Are you talking about the Ray such and such, who is the CEO of name of giant publisher?" And he goes, oh, is he? Yeah, he was. I was making a bad joke. I mean, I was making a keen observation, and I coupled it with a bad joke, and I nailed it. I thought of the worst case scenario, and I was right. Turns out with advertising, that's all you need. Think of the worst case scenario, and you're probably right. I know I'm cynical. Get over it. Correct for my cynicism with your own agile mind. So we see this advertising and marketing, consumer culture, creeping in everywhere. One of the most amazing things, another way that schools avoid raising taxes, is by raising money through selling soda on campus. So big companies, Coca-Cola, will come over and say, "We want you to be a Coke campus. We notice that you are either currently a Pepsi campus or have no affiliation, and we would like you to be a Coke campus. And what we would like to give you is such and such $1,000, and you will get to sell our product everywhere. And here's the thing, like, basically, as long as you keep up your end of the bargain, you're keeping like almost half of the profit. How could you complain? Well, I'll tell you how you can complain. Let's just walk past how terrible soda is for you. And let's think about the fact that that money is coming from the pockets of students who are getting it from their parents, who are getting 50% of the profit. So 20% of the overall product? 20% of the money being reinvested into the school. Instead of just saying, guys, we're going to turn to Coca-Cola if you dudes won't pay an extra $100 in taxes. You're going to pay the extra $100 in soda, and we're going to get 20 out of it. Come on, you guys. Tax it up. So here is a letter that was written by a Coke executive or Coke representative to a school who had opened a Coke contract. Dear Principal, we're in year 2 of the great Coke contract. First, the good news. This year's installment of Coke is in the house, and checks will be cut for you to pick up at my office this week. Your share will be, high schools get $25,000. Now, the not-so-good news. We must sell 70,000 cases of product, including juices, sodas, waters, etc., at least once during the first 3 years of the contract. If we're to reach this goal, and your school allotments will be guaranteed for the next 7 years, the math on how to achieve this is really quite simple. Last year, we had 32,000 students and 3,000 employees, 176 days in the school year. If 35,439 staff and students buy one Coke product every other day for the school year, we will double the required Coke quota. Here's how we can do this. Number 1, allow students to purchase and consume vended products throughout the day. If sodas are not allowed in classes, consider allowing juices, teas, and waters. Number 2, locate machines where they are accessible to students all day long. Research shows that location is key. You may have as many machines as you can handle. Pueblo Central High has tripled its volume of sales by placing vending machines on all 3 levels of the school. The Coke people surveyed the middle school and high schools of this summer, and they have suggestions on where to place machines. Amazing. Number 3, a list of Coke products is enclosed to allow you to select from an entire menu of beverages. Let us know which products you want, and we will get them to you. Please let us know if you need extra electrical outlets for the vending machines. And number 4, a calendar of promotional events is enclosed to help you advertise Coke products. Dude. By the way, this is signed The Coke Dude. This was during my time in high school in the 90s, really. And you can only imagine that it's more insane now. But do you understand the level of garbage going on in that letter? This is what we want. We want our children's education to be directed by consumerism so that they become well-informed consumers. It's what we're getting. It's what we're making. This is the world. This is the world we're making. We can make the world any way we want to. Any way we want to. And this is it. This is what we've done. Thanks, boomers. But it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, it gets so much worse because of the way that your digital footprint is being used against you. And I don't have time to go into great detail, but whatever you think that advertisers are collecting about your digital footprint, it's so much worse. It is so much more specific and so much worse. People are like, they listen to me when I talk and then show me the ads. That's nothing, man. That is nothing. They have a psychological profile built of you that you will never have access to. A psychological profile that shows your weaknesses, shows what time of the month you're more likely to buy things, shows what events trigger you, shows your political affiliation, shows, obviously your career, all of this stuff. A few years ago, a private university, a for-profit college, was sued for unfairly targeting people to come to college. And they do this because, they can either get at your GI Bill, which for-profit colleges love, or they can talk you into doing financial aid, which again, for-profit colleges love. And the model that they built to advertise to, the model of person they wanted, was someone who is on their last straw, who was teetering at the edge of depression and eviction, someone who was desperate for answers, and someone who was more likely to believe in a sign for the right direction to go, the right choice to make. That's who they were advertising to. That's who they were targeting. The most desperate people who were most likely to believe in a sign. Okay? So just imagine how this information is being used. Imagine how it gets shuttled around and created from all of your little devices. And I'm not being saying this is a boogeyman and not saying, turn off your stuff or whatever. I have no idea, man. I don't know. I have enough stuff out there between my TikTok and my podcast and my books that surely they have enough on me. I'm vocal enough. I TMI king over here. There is no way that any amount of security is going to protect my information from making me the perfect target for advertisers, and my kids too, and everything else. So I give up. I accept cookies, whatever. It's awful though, isn't it? I was visited by the personal anecdote. I was visited by the Secret Service. I'm assuming my Secret Service guy is listening to me now. Hi, how you doing, officer? I made a bad joke to a friend of mine who was in Washington, D.C., and I made the joke on Facebook, and I posted the comment, and it was really hyperbolic, absolutely, obviously ridiculous. And 5 Secret Service cars surrounded my house, and people ran out of them and circled the house by every window. And then one of them came up and knocked on the door. And guess what? I wasn't home. I was in Budapest. So they called me, and I was like, "You're not going to believe this. I've just slipped behind the Iron Curtain." Then they instructed me to call them back when I got back to the United States. And I did. And they came back over, but nicely this time. And we had a talk, and I was explained to that I need to be nicer. And I was like, "You guys, you couldn't tell this was a joke?" "Well, we looked over it, and obviously it's a joke." I'm like, "Then what are you doing besides intimidating me?" We have to follow up on everything. I'm like, okay, you had to follow up on a joke. That's fine. Then you're doing your job. I made a joke. Where's the law here? Well, just be more careful. Do you have a gun in the house? Do I not have a right to have a gun in the house? Did I miss some legislation that's long overdue? Yeah, anyway. They were nice enough. I made a coffee. We talked. But man, so yeah, your digital footprint is all over. Wild. All right, anyway, so ad creep. Advertisements slipping into every facet of our life, between our entertainment, our sports, our jobs, our schools, our academic problems, our voices as we discuss the fact that we're on our last straw and desperate for answers. It's really something. So really, wrapping up our section about advertising, I guess the point that I want to make is this penetrates far deeper than you expect. This is much more pervasive than you expect. This is very much the engine of everything that you see around you, of all of the social constructs, all of our traditions and ceremonies and way we live our lives is coming from this machine. And it's not all bad, but I'll let you sort out the not so bad parts. It's okay. You know? But just imagining different points in your life where advertisement affected you, for good or for bad, and reevaluating it. Reevaluating how it happened and what it meant. This is the work of anybody who's going to be a thinker in this society. This is your work. Now that you know, this is your responsibility. It's certainly your responsibility to look up other sources than me. You can do it.